Sarah thought she already knew who her father was. But when a DNA test was open live on stage, everything she believed shattered. Because the man sitting quietly in the audience wasn't just a guest. He was her real father, and he had been watching her the entire time. A truth 25 years in the making, revealed in front of millions. And what happened next made Dr. Phill go completely silent. It started with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it crushes it. Sarah sat frozen under the studio lights, her heartbeat pounding louder than the cameras around her. The DNA results had just been read. The man she called Dad for 25 years wasn't her father. Across from her, her mother, Linda, pressed her shaking hands together, whispering something too soft for the mics to catch. And just beyond the stage lights, in the front row of the audience, sat a man whose eyes told a story Sarah had never heard before. Dr. Phill turned toward him, his voice steady but tight. "Sir, can I ask why you're here today?" The man didn't move. He just stared at Linda. The tension was unbearable. It felt like the entire studio had stopped breathing. Then, out of nowhere, the man Sarah believed was her father, Thomas, stood up, his voice breaking. "This is ridiculous. After everything I've done, you humiliate me like this?" He ripped off his microphone and stormed toward the back of the stage, pushing past crew members trying to calm him. Sarah reached out, tears filling her eyes. "Dad, wait." But he didn't look back. Dr. Phill raised his hand to pause the chaos. "Let him go for now," he said quietly. "We need to understand what's really happening here." Sarah turned to her mother. "Mom, what is going on?" Linda couldn't answer. Her lips trembled as the truth pressed against the years of silence she'd built. Her eyes darted to the man in the audience, the one whose presence seemed to haunt her. Dr. Phill leaned forward, his voice low, deliberate. "Linda, I'm going to ask you something very directly. What have you kept from your daughter?" The room froze again. Linda's shoulders dropped, as if a lifetime of pretending had finally caught up. "I thought I was protecting her," she whispered. "I thought the truth would ruin her life." Sarah shook her head. "What truth?" Linda's voice cracked. "That the man sitting in the audience might be your real father." A collective gasp filled the studio. The camera zoomed in on Sarah's face, the disbelief, the confusion, the betrayal. "No," she said, barely breathing. "That's not possible." But the man in the audience finally stood up, and in that moment, Sarah saw it. The same hazel eyes, the same scar near the chin. For the first time in her life, she saw her reflection in a stranger. Dr. Phill, clearly shaken, looked between them. "We'll get to the truth today," he said firmly. "All of it." Behind the cameras, producers whispered frantically, cueing a break. The audience sat speechless, knowing they had just witnessed something raw, something that could never be scripted. As Sarah buried her face in her hands, one question echoed louder than the noise in her head. "Who am I, if everything I believed was a lie?" The stage lights dimmed, and with them, the illusion of her old life faded away. But what Linda was about to reveal next would flip the entire story upside down. 3 decades before the cameras, before the gasps, before the DNA results, there was only Linda, a 22-year-old waitress in a fading Texas town, trying to build a life she didn't understand. She wasn't reckless, just lonely. The kind of lonely that makes you mistake chaos for love. That's when she met Jake. He wasn't the safe type, not the kind of man your mother would approve of. He played guitar at a local bar, carried that easy smile that made promises without words. When he looked at Linda, she felt seen for the first time. For a few months, they were inseparable, sneaking into diners after hours, sharing dreams that sounded too big for their small town. But behind Jake's charm was something fragile. He had debts, secrets, nights when he disappeared without calling. And then came the night Linda found out she was pregnant. She called him over, hands trembling, voice breaking as she told him the news. Jake froze, his eyes full of something between fear and guilt. "I just need time," he said. Then he walked out the door. He never came back. Weeks turned into months. Linda stopped waiting for him to return. She picked up double shifts at the diner, ignoring the whispers about that poor girl with no ring. Then came Thomas, a regular customer, calm, dependable older. He'd stay late to help her clean up, always leaving a bigger tip than he should. He didn't flirt, he cared. One night, after closing, he said, "You deserve a home, not just a story." Thomas knew about the baby, and still he proposed. He told her, "We can give her a life together. She'll never have to know what you went through." Linda hesitated. She thought about the child growing inside her, about Jake's absence, about what love had cost her so far. So she said yes, not out of passion, but out of fear. Fear of raising a child alone. Fear of being judged. Fear that maybe she wasn't worthy of love unless it looked stable. When Sarah was born, Thomas held her like she was his own blood. His eyes filled with tears. "She's perfect," he whispered. Linda nodded, smiling through the ache. But as she looked at her daughter's tiny face, the soft curls, the hazel eyes identical to Jake's, she knew she was staring at a secret she'd spend her life protecting. That night, while the baby slept, Linda whispered over the crib, "You'll never need to know." Outside, rain hit the window like a heartbeat. And somewhere in that same town, Jake sat alone in his truck, clutching a photo from the hospital. The one nurse who thought he was the father had slipped it to him by mistake. He looked at the picture, tears falling onto the worn leather seat. He didn't drive away. He stayed in that town for years, watching from a distance, never letting her see him. Because sometimes love doesn't vanish. It hides, waiting for the truth to come knocking. But secrets don't stay buried forever. And DNA? DNA has its own memory. Would you have told the truth if it meant losing everything? It started as a joke. Sarah's best friend, Amber, had ordered one of those mail-in DNA kits for fun. They'd seen it all over TikTok: find out your ancestry, discover your roots. Harmless curiosity, a way to laugh about family quirks. They spit in the little tubes, mailed them off, and forgot about it. 3 weeks later, Sarah got an email notification. "Your DNA results are ready." She opened it at her kitchen table, still in pajamas, coffee in hand. But the smile on her face faded fast. The ancestry chart looked normal. Irish, German, a trace of something unexpected. But when she clicked on the Family Connections tab, something was missing. Her dad. No matches. Not even distant cousins from his side. The algorithm showed her mother's relatives clearly, but her father's name didn't appear anywhere. At first, she thought it was a glitch. Then a cold thought crossed her mind, the kind that makes your stomach twist. She texted her mom, "Hey, weird question. Why isn't Dad's side showing up on my DNA test?" Minutes passed, then an hour. Finally, Linda replied, "Those tests aren't always accurate. Don't stress about it." Sarah let it go for a day, but the unease grew louder. That night, she sat in the dark scrolling through old photos, comparing her features to Thomas's. She wanted to see him in her smile, her eyes, her hairline. But the more she looked, the less she saw. Then came the whispers. At a family barbecue, an aunt slipped after a few drinks. "You always did have your mom's everything," she said, catching herself mid-laugh. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. The aunt's face went pale. "Nothing, honey. Just talking nonsense." That night, Sarah went home and stared at her DNA report again. The words blurred through her tears. Something wasn't right. A week later, she called Dr. Phil's team. She didn't want fame. She wanted peace. "I think there's something my mom's not telling me," she said quietly. "And I need help finding the truth before it ruins us both." When producers contacted Linda, she hesitated. "This isn't for TV," she argued. "This is private." But deep down, Linda knew she couldn't outrun it anymore. The truth had already been written in Sarah's genes. In the days leading up to the taping, Dr. Phil's team ran standard prep interviews. Sarah talked about her confusion, her fear, and the ache of not knowing who she really was. Linda avoided direct questions. Her voice cracked whenever Jake's name came up. Behind the scenes, producers noticed something strange. A man had emailed the show privately, claiming he knew why Linda was nervous. He signed it simply, "You'll want to hear my side of the story." They verified his ID, ran his DNA test, and when the results came back, the room went quiet. The DNA confirmed what Linda had kept buried for 25 years. He wasn't lying. When showtime came, the producers made a choice to bring him in quietly, seat him in the audience, and see how the truth played out. During rehearsal, Dr. Phill looked Linda in the eye and asked one final time, "Is there something your daughter doesn't know?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered. But no one, not even Dr. Phill, expected what would happen when the cameras started rolling. And that man in the audience stood up, clutching his own envelope, the one with his DNA results. And when he did, the entire studio fell silent. Because the real father had just revealed himself, live in front of millions. Can the truth heal, or does it have to destroy everything first? When the audience doors opened that morning, nobody noticed the man in the brown jacket. He walked in quietly, head down, avoiding cameras. To the producers, he was a potential witness. To Linda, he was a ghost she'd tried to bury for half her life. Now, under the harsh studio lights, that ghost was standing. Dr. Phil's voice softened, the same calm he used when truth was about to land like a thunderclap. "Sir, could you tell us who you are?" The man's voice trembled, but it carried through the room. "My name is Jake. I'm Sarah's biological father." Gasps rippled through the audience. Sarah's breath caught. Her hands clutched the armrests as if bracing for impact. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." But Jake's eyes, those same hazel eyes she'd seen in her mirror since childhood, told a different story. Linda broke down instantly. "I told him not to come," she cried. "I told him this would ruin her life." Dr. Phill leaned in, quietly but firmly. "Linda, secrets don't protect people. They imprison them." Jake looked at Linda, then back at Sarah. "I stayed away because your mom asked me to," he said, voice cracking. "I didn't want to hurt you. But when I saw you on TV, begging for answers, I couldn't stay silent anymore." The camera panned to Sarah's face, confusion, betrayal, anger all colliding at once. "So what? You just watch my life from a distance," she snapped. "Every birthday, every graduation." Jake nodded, tears rolling down. "Everyone. I sat in the back. I sent anonymous cards. I just wanted to see that you were okay." The audience went quiet again. Dr. Phill took a long breath. "You've been carrying this secret for 25 years. Why now?" Jake pulled a crumpled envelope from his jacket pocket. "Because I can't die with a lie between us," he said. "And because I have something she needs to know." He handed the envelope to Dr. Phill. Inside was a single photo, a faded picture of baby Sarah in the hospital. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "She deserves to know the truth." Linda sobbed. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she whispered. "Thomas loved her like his own. I wanted to keep her safe." Dr. Phill looked between them. "Safe from what, Linda?" "The truth." Sarah stood, trembling. "All my life, you taught me to be honest, to own my choices. And this is what you kept from me." The audience held its breath. Even the camera operators were still. Jake stepped closer, stopping just short of the stage. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I don't want to take you from anyone. I just want a chance to know my daughter." For a moment, no one spoke. Then, Sarah whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore." Dr. Phill turned to her gently. "You're still you," he said. "The truth doesn't erase who you are. It reveals who's been hiding in the dark." The room sat in heavy silence. You could hear someone in the back sniffle. Linda reached for Sarah's hand. "Please don't hate me. I thought I was protecting you from a mistake." Sarah didn't pull away, but she didn't hold on either. She just stared at the floor, breathing unevenly, caught between two lives. Jake wiped his eyes. "I missed 25 years. I can't fix that, but maybe I could be here now." The lights dimmed slightly as Dr. Phill ended the segment. "Sometimes the hardest truth is the one that was meant to protect us," he said. "But protection isn't the same as love. And love isn't real unless it's honest." As the cameras cut to black, Sarah sat motionless. The applause sign flashed, but no one clapped. Because everyone knew this wasn't just television. It was a family breaking, and maybe, just maybe, beginning again. Is it ever too late to be a parent, or too early to forgive? 2 weeks later, the applause was gone. No lights, no cameras, just the echo of what happened on that stage. Sarah sat alone in her apartment, blinds half closed, the city, noise muffled outside. The internet had renamed her the DNA girl. Millions of views, endless debates. Was her mother evil? Was the father a hero? But for Sarah, it wasn't a story. It was her life, split in two. Every time her phone buzzed, she felt a spike of anxiety. Messages from strangers, from classmates, even from producers asking if she'd return for a follow-up. But the one message she avoided most came from Linda. Her mother's texts were desperate. "Please, I need to explain. You're still my baby, no matter what the test says." I thought I was doing the right thing. Sarah never replied. On the voicemail app, another voice waited, softer, uncertain male. "Jake, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I never stopped caring, even when I wasn't allowed to." She listened halfway, then shut her phone off. Because what do you do when every version of your past feels like a lie? Days turned into nights that felt endless. Sarah found herself rewatching the episode online, pausing at her own face, frozen between shock and realization. She didn't even recognize that girl anymore. Then came a letter, hand-delivered, no return address. Inside, a photograph of a man holding a newborn in a hospital room. Thomas, her dad, the man who raised her. On the back, written in his neat handwriting, "No matter what they say, you'll always be my little girl." That's when Sarah broke. Not out of anger, but grief. For the father who raised her, for the man who stayed in the shadows, for the mother who lied, trying to keep everyone together. She realized everyone had been trying to protect her, and yet, in doing so, they'd all lost her. A week later, Sarah returned to the Dr. Phill studio. This time, no cameras, no audience. Just empty seats, dust on the stage, and a quiet hum of air conditioning. She sat in Dr. Phil's chair, the same spot where the truth exploded, and whispered, "I finally get it. The truth doesn't fix the past, but it stops it from owning you." Dr. Phill entered quietly. They spoke off camera. He asked, "Do you want to see them again?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. But this time, no surprises. A private meeting was arranged. No lights, no producers, no scripts. Just three people in a quiet counseling room. Linda walked in first, eyes swollen, hands shaking. Jake followed, hat in hand, looking smaller than he did on stage. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Sarah whispered, "I hate what you did, but I don't want to carry that hate forever." Tears came. Linda covered her face, sobbing, "I didn't want you to feel unwanted." Jake whispered, "And I didn't want to ruin your life." Silence. But not the cold kind from before. This one was softer. Heavy, but human. Sarah looked at both of them. "You already did ruin it. But maybe now we can rebuild something honest." Linda reached out first. Jake followed. Sarah hesitated. Then, slowly, she let them both hold her hands. 3 hands. 3 lifetimes of mistakes, bound together by one moment of fragile truth. And for the first time in months, Sarah smiled. But just when she thought the chapter had closed, Linda spoke again. "There's something else you need to know." Dr. Phill, watching quietly from behind the glass, froze. Because Linda's voice carried that same tremor as before, the one that meant the story wasn't finished yet. She whispered, "Jake isn't the only secret I kept." The room fell silent. Sarah's eyes widened. And with that, the story turned again, because forgiveness was never meant to be easy. Does knowing the truth free you, or chain you to the past? The cameras were long gone, but some truths echo long after the world stops watching. Months passed since that explosive episode. Sarah had started rebuilding, piece by piece. Therapy sessions, quiet dinners with friends, long walks where she tried to understand not just what happened, but why. The chaos had settled, but something still lingered. Her mother's final words that day. "Jake isn't the only secret I kept." For weeks, Sarah avoided it, pretended she hadn't heard. But the silence gnawed at her. Finally, she met Linda again, this time in a quiet park near their hometown. The same place Linda used to push her on the swings when she was little. They sat on a bench, the autumn leaves falling around them. Linda looked older now, not by years, but by the weight of truth finally carried. "There's no more hiding," she said softly. Sarah braced herself. Linda took a deep breath. "The day you were born. I never told you this, but Jake was there. He tried to fight for you. I told him to go. I lied and said Thomas had adopted you legally." Sarah's eyes widened. "You lied to him too?" Tears spilled down Linda's cheeks. I didn't want you to grow up with two fathers fighting over you. I thought I was protecting you from chaos. But I see now, I was protecting myself. From guilt. From shame. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the soft crunch of leaves under their feet. Sarah finally said, "You didn't just hide my father. You had my choice. You never gave me a chance to know him." Linda nodded. "I know, and I'll regret that until the day I die." Sarah looked away, her jaw trembling. "Why are you telling me this now?" Linda smiled weakly. "Because truth isn't about comfort. It's about closure. And I don't want to leave this world owing you honesty." Sarah's anger slowly gave way to something heavier, understanding. Because now she could see the full picture, a young mother, terrified, doing what she thought was right in a world that wasn't kind to mistakes. And maybe, just maybe, that was love too. Flawed, desperate love. That night, Sarah went home and found an old photo album, the one Thomas had made for her childhood birthdays. She flipped through the pages, touching the faces of both men who had shaped her in different ways. One through presence, the other through sacrifice. Weeks later, she made a decision. It was her college graduation day, the first milestone since the truth came out. The auditorium was packed, sunlight pouring through tall glass windows. In the front row sat Linda, hands clasped tightly in her lap. On one side of her, Jake. On the other, Thomas. Two men who once lived as opposites, now sitting side by side for the first time. When Sarah's name was called, the audience cheered. But all she heard was the sound of those two men clapping together. Imperfect, out of sync but united. She turned, tears in her eyes, and mouthed, "Thank you." Later, backstage, Dr. Phill met them quietly. It wasn't for TV this time, just a check-in, one human to another. He smiled gently. "You've come a long way," he said. Sarah nodded. "The truth didn't destroy me. It just stripped away everything fake until I finally saw what was real." Dr. Phill paused, then said, "Sometimes healing isn't about who was right. It's about who's ready to stop hiding." Sarah smiled through her tears. "We all hid, but we're done now." As the sun dipped outside the auditorium, the three of them, Sarah, Linda, Jake, stood together for the first family photo that wasn't built on lies. No more pretending. No more running. Just truth, raw, painful, freeing. And for the first time in her life, Sarah didn't feel broken. She felt whole. Because sometimes the truth doesn't tear you apart. It finally lets you breathe. Would you want to know if the truth could change everything? If this story touched something inside you, you're not alone. We all carry secrets, some small, some heavy. But honesty, no matter how late, has the power to heal. Share your story in the comments, because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear that forgiveness is still possible. And remember, sometimes the truth is the only way home.